Oh man. It was my first city, probably about January, and it snowed. They hadn't seen snow in a long time. It gets very cold and rains constantly, just this constant mist of rain. You don't think that it's actually like raining that hard, but once you actually get inside, you're drenched, all the way down. And but it was in January and it was snowing, and we had things that we had to get done. And we couldn't go home. Like there were things that had to get done that night, and we had a member call and say, "Hey, we need you at our house." And so we tried biking in the snow, and it was really scary. I was scared out of my mind, and they have just the coolest picture of me, like kind of like falling off of the bike, but like all this snow like in the picture, and so that was probably the craziest. It was just right there at the beginning, just the snow out of nowhere, and then it all froze, and you had to try and bike over it, and crazy, very crazy. Okay, so we taught and got to know a lot of Africans. And in Africa, they eat something called fufu. And it's this doughy, potatoey ball, just this glump that, they hand press and mix together. And then they just stick it in a soup. And you have to eat it with your fingers. Just because a lot of places don't have utensils. And a lot of missionaries didn't really like it, but then there were a lot of us who actually really did. And so depending on the different area of Africa that they were from, they had different ways of eating it. In Nigeria, you use your three fingers and you like scoop it and like get as much soup as you can, and then you put it in your mouth, and you're allowed to chew it. But in Ghana, you're not supposed to chew it. You just scoop it and put it in your mouth and swallow. And the soup itself is very spicy. And so sometimes you don't really know what's in the soup. Like one time I had one, and there was still like fish bones and things in it. And it took me a second to like be okay with like, there's bones in the soup. But that was the most exotic thing, and it was the most delicious thing. So very good. The waffles. I love the waffles in Belgium. They are the best. And I loved all the very different renditions of potatoes that they do. Like their mashed potatoes. They have something called stamppot, which is just mashed potatoes, but with like the vegetables already all mashed in it, and their gravy. They just do potatoes really well, and that was something that I just could not get enough of. I just ate so many potatoes. To pick one that I won't get emotional about is navigation. I was terrible at navigation, and having to have a map and like hold a map and figure out which was north and which way was east, and how to find addresses, and you have to walk. You can't like get, that was probably the biggest thing, was I actually learned how to read a map. I never actually had a language mistake to like my last transfer. It wasn't until my last transfer that all the embarrassing things happened. And it wasn't necessarily that I mixed up words. It was just silly little mistakes that you would think an experienced missionary would know. I was always very timid to speak the language. I was always insecure about my ability to speak the language, and so I was very very basic with it. But I did have a companion who we were trying so very hard to teach, just to do our job. And we kept saying a swear word over and over again. And in the Dutch language, it's a very tiny change that, or sound that can change the entire meaning of the word. And so there was just, we were just saying it over and over again. And another thing is in Dutch and, well, in Holland and in Belgium, they use the same word, but they have two very different meanings. And so that was another thing, is I learned a word that was okay to use in Belgium, but was totally not appropriate and okay to use among the Dutch people. And so that was something that I had to get used to, is because, just the opposite too. I learned a word in Holland that I used down in Belgium, and the whole family would start to snicker, and you'd be like, well, what did I say? And then they tell you what it was, and, just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, your kids shouldn't even have to hear that. It's just funny how just a little change, or just crossing the border, means completely different things. So